Welcome back to Sunrise Daily World. We're still talking about this change mantra as launched by the president. So how does our next guest think of this mantra, Mark?
It is that it's better late than never. It's better late than never. Bernard Shaw, that Irish poet, had said it several years back that for there to be progress, there has to be change. When minds don't change, things will be static. But my concern is that it's one thing to have a mantra, the change mantra. It's another thing to be able to walk the talk, to act the talk. Because from one administration to the other, we've always had one mantra or the other. In the last administration, it was all about transformation. In the present administration, what we have is the change agenda. But the question is that beyond the semantics, beyond the talk,
yeah,
are we ready? Hello?
Yeah,
beyond the semantics, beyond the talk, are we ready to change our ways? It's not a mechanical process. It's a gradual process. And it's dual. Change has to come from the leadership, and it also has to come from the followership.
The people who say that they have not seen any change from the leadership, and as such, it is immoral for the leadership to, argue that the change should begin with anyone or from the followers, as it were.
I beg to differ a bit on that point. We must give kudos where necessary. Where the government has done well, we should give it to the government. We should thank the government for doing well. I, for one, and I speak so sincerely, when this government came in, security in Nigeria was in shambles. The security situation has greatly improved. No one can dispute that. Even though a lot of people might say that the fight against corruption is being selective, my take on that is that whether it is selective or not, those that are being battled for corruption, were those acts actually committed or not? That's my take on it. It is not a defense under criminal law to say that I'm not a thief because I'm being singled out of all thieves. A thief is a thief by whatever name that he's called. So on those two fronts, the fight against corruption and the enthronement of security, I think the government has done well.
You don't think that security too would also be subjective in the sense that, yes, there have been, many strides recorded in the fight in the Northeast, but then you've also seen kidnappings, Fulani herdsmen rampaging, and so-called Fulani herdsmen, as it were, rampaging in the South and all. We've seen some sort of development, and it would depend on who you ask in terms of security.
Absolutely, absolutely. But we've always had these issues. We've always had restiveness in the Niger Delta. We've always had cases of kidnapping in previous administrations.
So can we successfully say that in terms of security they've achieved or they've delivered on their promise?
They're in the right direction. They've done something that we can see. If the Northeast is out of it, then the problem becomes greatly reduced. It becomes greatly reduced. Now, where we have our problems presently, as far as I'm concerned, has to do with the economy. And we have to be true to ourselves. We're a mono economy. We're solely dependent on oil. We're all aware of what has been happening in the Niger Delta. We've not been able to meet up with our production quota with OPEC of 2.2 million barrels per day. About 800,000 barrels per day is being lost. And any country that is mono-dependent on a particular resource, once that resource is impaired, it goes without saying, even though it is better said, that the economy will be greatly affected. Development doesn't just happen over time. It's a process.
And from what you can see, would you say that there are actually signs on the ground to say that there's any change happening here in terms of even how government is trying to, deliver on some of its promises? Do you see any marked difference from, how the previous administration ran its own government and how this current administration is running its own government?
There's a lot of marked difference in the areas of corruption. Most people in government now know that when it comes to issues of corruption, they have to be extremely careful. There's a marked difference. We've had TSA. The funds that ordinarily would go into TSA are funds that ordinarily go into private pockets at the end of the year in December that are usually shared and frittered away. So there's a marked difference. I understand, and we're all in the same boat, that things are not easy. We understand that there's recession in place. But the government is not folding its arms totally. Things are being put in place. Ajaokuta Steel Rolling Mills is being revamped to come on board. If it's fully functional, it can employ about 100,000 people.
So for you think the government has a moral standing to give this message?
For me, what government has to do, beyond the message, government has to act the talk. Government has to show by its conduct that it is ready to see this message through. Government has to ensure that it is in constant touch with the needs of the people. Government has to listen. Our leaders have to come down from their high horses and relate with the dregs of the society. Because today you might be in government, tomorrow you will be out of government. You'll become a follower. The kind of leadership we have is determined by the quality of the fellowship that we have in Nigeria. If the pond is polluted, I can guarantee that any product that will come out from that pond will also be polluted.
Chimling has a question.
Are you saying, try to understand what you're saying, are you saying that you subscribe to the school of thoughts of those who say, well, the message may be good for another time, but right now it's not timely and it's out of touch with reality?
My point is that we all agreed on one thing, that we're all not happy with the way Nigeria has been. We're all not totally happy with the way Nigeria is. So it goes without saying, even though it is better said, that we need to move away from the way we've been doing things in the past. It was Einstein that said that it's only a madman that continues to do things in a particular manner, he continues to get the same results, and he continues with the old ways. It goes without saying. But my own take to it is that beyond the mantra, Nigerians are tired of mantra, with due respect to the president and his team. Our leaders willing and able to put this mantra into action. Because if you expect me to change, I must also see that change from the leadership. I must see that change from our ministers. I must see that change from our heads of parastatals. So it's a correlation. It's a symbiotic relationship.
In other words,
you have to perform your own role. I also have to perform mine.
Are you then saying, Mr. Akanbi, are you saying that they don't need to launch a message in order for them to ensure that attitudes change in the country?
Well, maybe they feel they should, but my own take to it is that we all agree that Nigeria is not okay. We all desire a Nigeria that satisfies the yearnings of everyone, and it behoves on each and every one of us to play his or her role within that project. We need to look at our private lives. Are we proud of the things, are our kids proud of the things that we do in public? The family in sociology is said to be the smallest unit of the society. In Nigeria, you have parents who will go and pay for their wards in exam centers so that they can get good results. We must begin to examine ourselves critically. Before you criticize that other person, first remove that speck from your own eye.
Isn't that what the people are telling the government? That, you know, we haven't seen you take out the log from your own eye and asking us to take out specks from our eyes.
Yes, that is why I say it's a relationship that cuts both ways. The expectation both ways. If you're a leader, you're fortunate to hold political office. You must not engage in a life of flamboyance. You must not engage in a life of ostentation, because people are watching. People are watching. There has to be a cutback in government spendings. There has to be accountability.
Have you seen that?
There has to be transparency.
These are the questions that we're asking. Have you seen that? So, for instance, now on your way down to, I would have imagined that, you know, maybe a day after the message was launched, perhaps I would have seen ambassadors on the road who are trying to ensure that, you know, people are even doing things the right way. For instance, I've been living in the Federal Capital Territory for a while, and, you know, you see some amount of discipline or some amount of I don't know what to put in, but you see a difference in terms of how people, you know, relate with each other, in terms of how they behave. And that seems to be, you know, it looks like government is doing something where it's doing it, and, you know, people are doing their own thing where they're doing it.
That is why I've said the government has to engage people more. When you have programs, when you have initiatives, you must get people's buy-in. You must get people to key into it.
So you used to see that disconnect.
There's a lot of disconnect.
Okay, we'll address that disconnect when we return from this timeout. Do join us again.